All right. Now we've got the double record on. So, welcome. We're back for our last session in this retreat series. And today I'm coming to you from New York City. I'm out here visiting my daughter. So, fun to have a different setting outside the windows. And just so happy to get to come connect with you as we do this. So, and I'm going to just keep an eye, make sure nobody's waiting in the waiting room. Looks good. So welcome. Yeah, so this is what I've been calling my Tune You Retreat series, and really all about helping us at this time, realizing that this year has been so challenging for all of us, I would propose, in some ways. And even an aspect here, because today's focus is going to be about the importance of, and even more how to even really simply build, decide on, create a renewed morning routine. And I want to talk to you about why I've realized and discovered and decided that morning routines are so important, how much that's changed my life. And some of the awareness here is that, first of all, we already have a morning routine, right? That right now, each day, we probably wake up and we have some things that we tend to do most mornings, right? Whether that's reach for our phone, turn on the news, listen to some music, drink that cup of coffee, right? There's lots of things we might be doing already that are part of our morning routine. And some of these things may be totally working for us in that we can look at how our morning routine is a way to make sure that we're fitting in some of that important self-care and some attention to our sense of spirituality, and really realizing that spirituality involves practice, right? It's something that we can benefit from more, we can get into more, we can live in more when we have some ways that we're developing a spiritual practice. So, wanting to talk to you today about some of the ways that I've seen that we can really easily choose and refresh our morning routines. And I'm super excited to share that with you. And my focus and approach is always to help you bring this home, to help you weave in new ways to take care of yourself, new ways to tune yourself, I like to say it. And that really my awareness more than ever is that when we're doing some things to take care of ourselves with the mind, body, and in a soul type of way, right? That can have some of the most impact. And that's what we could call a holistic approach, a holistic lifestyle, right? And so when we look at things like our practices, our habits, our rituals, how they're helping us with taking care of our mental health, taking care of our physical health, taking care of our energy, managing that energy, which is so important, and also helping us keep building and finding that spiritual connection, if that's what we're interested in, right, as part of this very precious life. So, wanting to help us do that. And another awareness about this year that isn't necessarily so pleasant. And this came up in, I especially got this when I've at least 3 or 4 times now done a video conversation interview with my friend Veronica Winsky, who is an amazing energy mindset coach in various ways. But she's brought up, and this is really true, I see, and it may not feel wonderful to realize this and embrace this, but this year we've probably been developing some new habits, right? Whether it's and we don't even realize it, right? We probably have started to start our days in some different ways. We potentially have fallen into some habits, routines, even dropped some of our habits and routines, right? And for a lot of us, me too, it's been like, you know what? We're just doing whatever we can to get through this. And if that means more Netflix, more sleeping, more baking, right? More whatever it might be, great. Like, let's just get through it. Try to make the most of each day. But also some of us probably reaching for some things we don't want to, right? Maybe whether it's putting things in our bodies that we know just don't make us feel good, whether it's giving up some of our important rituals and habits and practices in ways that we, we now are really seeing the difference, probably, right? But yeah, so probably potentially this year, I'm always like fixing my new bangs here. um, this year, more than ever, we've been challenged, right? Life has really changed. And then even for a lot of us, maybe we had ways that we were taking care of ourselves with some of the aspects I'm going to talk about today, like say taking care of our bodies. Maybe some of the ways we were taking care of our bodies feel like they've been taken from us. Maybe we loved going to the gym. Maybe we were part of a softball team. Maybe we were, had some classes that we really were a part of, and now we feel like we can't be. So there's been a lot of reasons why a lot of us are probably disconnected from even the habits, practices, rituals that were working. And then also that we probably started, me too, to develop some new routines, habits, rituals unintentionally, unconsciously, not really thinking, okay, I'm going to start doing this every day because I think this is good for me, right? But suddenly we're noticing, oh, wow, I'm doing this every day. So it is becoming a habit. It is becoming a ritual. It is becoming a practice, and it is tuning us. And then we can ask, how is it tuning us to feel? What are we getting under the influence of, right? With those habits, with those routines, and specifically with that morning routine. Because mornings are an especially potent time for many reasons that I've gotten from all the teachers I love to listen to. And what's really cool about right now on the planet this time is there's a big awareness and consciousness about how so many people that we see maybe in the media, authors, speakers, teachers, people who are really thriving, artists, humans, right? But humans who seem to be thriving and happy and healthy, there seems to be this common denominator amongst a lot of them that they all seem, or many of them, seem to have a morning routine and swear by the power of their morning routine. And so there's been a lot of discussion about that. So I feel like it's more exciting than ever for us to embrace this awareness that how we start our days matters a heck of a lot. It may be one of the most important ways that we can impact our feelings, how we're feeling emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, is how we're starting our days. And whether you start at 5 a.m. or 12 p.m., however, whenever time you start your days, right, whatever your schedule may be, it matters. And some of the thinking on why does it matter in the morning? Why is it not just enough to do some of these things later in the day, right? Well, and it is still better than not doing a lot of these things, to do it at some point of the day. But mornings are really a potent time that we can take advantage of because in a lot of ways we wake up in a fresh state energetically. If we like to think about spirituality and ways that we're reconnecting spiritually, a lot of spiritual teachers would talk about that when we're sleeping, right? Our consciousness is perhaps connecting more with those spiritual realms, with that spiritual part of life, right? So when we wake, we're still potentially the most connected that we're going to be all day. And so we can really work with that. And then also because when we look at how it's all energy and whatever we focus on grows, right? And so when we're looking at things like how we start our days, and how energy has a momentum, undeniably. So when we start our days intentionally, consciously, with habits, rituals, practices that tune us mentally, physically, spiritually, energetically. And what's so cool about a lot of these practices is they do all of the above. And part of what I'm going to share with you is if you only had 6 minutes to do your morning routine, how you could let that be this amazing, full, rich experience. So that's part of what I'm going to talk to you about in today's offering, helping you start to decide what sort of things do seem to be helpful to do in our mornings. And that's part of what a lot of this research, a lot of these conversations, podcasts, books that have come out talking to, learning from people who are thriving, people who are happy, people who are successful, quote unquote, mentally, physically, emotionally, and even really just enjoying what they're creating in their lives, right? Swear by their morning routine. And but what about in the morning routine? What should you do? What's important? What's really going to be the most potent, helpful, and impacting amongst our choices, right? So that's part of what I'm going to talk to you today about. How to hone in on what to choose, what to use. And if you only had 6 minutes, you could do a full morning routine that could hit all these aspects that now we know are part of a lot of these higher functioning individuals, right? Not to judge at all, but just people who seem to be having a smoother time with life swear by their morning routines and these elements specifically that seem to be part of a common thread across most of these individuals, right? And people who are into this morning routine idea. So, yeah, so looking at how have we been starting our days? What do we do at the start of our days right now, right? What is it that we make sure we make it a point to do? And how's that working for us? How is that part of how we're feeling in our mental health, in our physical health, energetically? How connected we're feeling spiritually, right? How much does what we're doing in the morning, because you're doing something, how is that working for you? Is it tuning you to feel how you want to physically, to help you focus how you want to mentally, to help you energetically experience your moments and your days in a way that feels better, right? And even are you liking how life is going around you? If you're into and aware of this idea of law of attraction, that whatever energy we're in, whatever energy we're transmitting, that we're bringing more of that back, right? So that's some of the magic and the play that I love to be aware of, that what I'm doing in the mornings to get me feeling good, right? To tune myself is totally what's creating my day, because we could start to see that when we're out in the world, whatever energy we're in is part of what we're vibing up with, right? So even if it's humans that we're going to see anyways, we could even see that if we're in a low vibe, right? If we're feeling really bad, grumpy, angry, frustrated, upset, that energy is going to be more likely to have us line up and align with, experience that aspect outside of us too. So if we're going to say greet our partner, see our children later in the morning, for instance, if we're grumpy, right? If we're out of sorts, if we're out of alignment, we're more likely to vibe up with a out of aligned version of them too, right? And more moments, experiences that are on that vibration. So the power play here is that when we tune ourselves and do what we can to just really shift and lift our vibe and know that the start of the day is the easiest and most important to do that, most important time to do that, that then we can really start to see ourselves having pretty magical, wonderful, serendipitous, synchronistic days. And I absolutely can vouch for that and have experienced that and gotten amazing reports from the people that I get to work with and learn with, that when we take care of our vibe, when we take care of our energy, when we reconnect spiritually, right? When we hone that focus with the mind and our attention, and when we're taking care of that body in some ways, right? Because it's all a big part of the equation, a big part of how we're managing our energy, a big part of how we're feeling. The body's a big part of our guidance. If we're interested in living more intuitively, feeling like we can listen to that more, live from that more, then these are all the ways to do it. And when we realize that how we start our days is really going to determine how we're feeling all day. And then what's so cool about this, what I love, is that when I do wake feeling out of sorts, which happens at least some mornings, right? Whether I'm feeling worried about something, sad about something, regretful about something, upset about something, right? That I can now use my practices to tune me more towards how I want to feel, how I want to focus, because I know How I'm feeling and how I'm focusing is creating it all, right? So it's a power play that we really want to realize. And when we do, it can change everything. Everything in our lives can shift and lift just from how we're tuning ourselves, I find. And especially when we add this morning routine. So that's really what this whole workshop series, this retreat series has been leading up to, is dropping hints, ways, ideas, tools, practices that I am aware of, that I love, that I use, that I prescribe for the people I get to work with, that can be part of this tuning. And yeah, when we start to really look at what we're doing in our mornings and make some different choices, make it more or maybe all about tuning ourselves, it can really shift our entire day, our entire lives, definitely impact our relationships, the energy we're going to have for our projects and creations, how we're going to be in the world, how we're going to be in our moments. It changes everything. So I feel like that's exciting news. I'm like sharing the good news here that we can take care of how we feel, and only we can take care of how we feel. That's where this is at. Like, eventually it's up to us, right? Someone else can't do our morning routine for us, right? Someone else can't help us choose how we're focusing. Someone else can't, well, and we can receive help and benefit, right? As far as things with all these aspects from others. But in the end, I see that it's all about what we're doing with ourselves, to ourselves, for ourselves. And the more we're doing it like every day, the better it works. And then the ultimate realization, and to me, the best way to bring in this wisdom and let it really work for us, is to see how those mornings are so important. So important. And it might mean that if we've got a heavy, busy, dense schedule, that we're going to need to wake up a little bit earlier, right? Which might mean that we're going to go to bed a little bit earlier if that's how it goes for us. But that, because we're deciding that when we just jump out of bed and rush into our day and kind of let the momentum of the day take us, it can be a lot different of a ride, right? Versus starting our day, choosing our focus, tuning our energy, helping that body manage that energy, getting in touch with ourselves more, getting in touch spiritually more, reconnecting really. And that's where at the heart of all this, remember, and if we could say that all of this is talking about yoga, sure, because yoga means, if you haven't hung around me for long now, I'll remind you, yoga means union, to join, to connect. That's all. It doesn't mean downward dog. So that's what we're talking about here when we're doing things to help us reconnect and build those feelings of connection, that's going to shift everything. So as we tune ourselves to feel more connected to ourselves, more connected to our truth, our heart, our soul, our sense of spirituality, right? And more connected to our body, more connected to our breath, more connected to what's happening in the mind and how we're using it, right? So all about that connecting that we're getting to do with these tools, practices, habits, rituals. And then lastly, I found this works best, in my opinion. Well, yeah, when we personalize these practices, when we really hone in on what works for me, right? And so that's what I want you to be thinking about today as I share some of these kind of general ideas that are being talked about, that we might want to look at, ways we want to build in a morning routine. What sorts of things do we want to be doing? What sorts of things seem important? What sorts of practices, habits, rituals? But then that you could, as you are with me on this, and maybe you'll even like take some notes, that you can start to hone in on, well, what's a way for me to experience that, right? Because we might each have our own unique way that we could build in one of those aspects and practices for ourselves. So the more I find, the more that we personalize what our morning routine is. So not everybody probably should be doing the same morning routine. Someone else's morning routine might make you feel terrible, right? So that's where the more that you can really personalize what works for you? What are you excited about? Who do you want to listen to? How do you want to do some of this tuning that we're going to talk about, that it's really going to work the best? And then what's so awesome, what I love too, is it means, at least for me, that I'm excited to get up in the mornings because I like how I start my days. I'm doing things that I love, and it makes me eager to get out of bed, excited to get out of bed, happy to start my days, right? And especially because I know I'm so powerfully attending to my energy and so potently creating my day, right? Going to have such a different day because of the morning routine that I've done. So it's amazingly cool and awesome, and I'm so happy to share it with you. And this all definitely comes from my learning along the way with myself, 100%, still learning all the time, but then also in getting to work with others and really help others develop these practices, find out what works, learn new things, try new things, and then choose what you notice really works for you. So thank you for being here. I'm so excited to bring you in on this. So let's, because I like this to not just feel like I'm talking to you and at you the whole time, let's have a moment to settle in, and you might want to kind of stretch into your body and let your body even lead you with how it wants to move and kind of express the energy. Maybe you're feeling stiff or tight. So that's just like a simple way to start to come into the moment, right? Come into the body more, just to let yourself intuitively move and stretch and let your body guide you to what it wants to do. You could say that's like a moment of yoga, even when you hear your body saying, I'm uncomfortable, I'm stiff, I'm tight. It might feel good to do this. And then you let yourself, right? So let's do that right now if you haven't already. And like I was doing, this is a really good stretch when you bring the arms up overhead, hands interlaced, sitting nice and aligned. This is going to stretch and straighten out your posture, which is really going to open up your heart and help free up your breath, even build feelings of confidence and well-being with this power-like pose. And it just takes about a minute. And then let's add a little breath into it, because that's so amazing to add to anything. A slow, long belly breath and a slow, long exhale. And then bring the arms down. Give yourself a couple shoulder rolls and let yourself get into your breathing more. And just slower, longer belly breathing is always a great idea to add to any of these practices in any moment, right? That conscious breath. So just give yourself a little moment of conscious breath with your eyes opened or closed, breathing into that belly, filling it up with that fresh oxygen, that fresh energy, feeling that, seeing that. And then as you exhale out of your mouth or nose, just feel how that breath is clearing you out, helping you let some of that tension, tightness, stress go, and really relaxing you. It's the exhale that relaxes us. So give yourself a couple more of those. Slow, long belly breath in and super long, more complete exhale out. So already these things are changing our physiology, right? Which is starting to even impact our psychology because of that mind-body connection, and really shifting our energy already, right? Because it's all energy. So that's where, to see it all holistically, that when you do just the simplest stretch, the simplest breath, that helps you mentally, physically, energetically, and even can be a spiritually reconnecting thing to do. So keep doing that while we're here. Keep being comfortable, keep stretching, moving, breathing, and then just relaxing. Such a great tool that we can all use more of, especially this year, right? And that's really some of the awareness too that I think a lot of us are in, and especially this year, that a lot of us are really wired in the nervous system right now to that survival mode, right? To that fight or flight. The nervous system overloaded, most of us, many of us, really on edge, right? And that's why there's such a phenomenon of anxiety and even feelings of depression are related as well too, because wow, right? There's a lot going on, and that when we're in that survival mode, that stress response and nervous system, it's so hard on all the organs, all the systems. It lowers our immunity. It messes with our focus, right? And definitely is the opposite of what we look for in spirituality, which would be the opposite of that fear, right? Would be more like faith. So this year, especially, I feel a lot of us, and we were already there, have really gotten wired to that fight or flight and just kind of stuck there with our nervous system, right? And that's why we might just be feeling like there's always anxiety, just having a hard time focusing, right? Having a hard time being present, having a hard time feeling good is because we have that nervous system, which goes with our focus, right? It's a lot about how we're feeling, and it's all energy. And then I even just saw an article, I think yesterday or the day before, that a lot of what's happened this year for us, we now know that when we're in that fight or flight, that we tend to, yeah, just be kind of making different choices to try to just help ourselves feel better, right? So like this article was saying that at the beginning of the COVID, there was a real elevation in baking, right? That a lot more people started baking at the beginning of the COVID quarantine shutdown as maybe like a response to that fight or flight, that stress mode that a lot of this has triggered for a lot of us, right? And that does tend to be a state that then we do reach for things to soothe us that may or may not be what are actually going to soothe us, right? May or may not be taking care of the body, may or may not be helping our focus, helping our energy, helping our relationships, right? So just acknowledging perhaps that a lot of us, that nervous system, so that relaxing thing is huge. So we're going to be aiming to do that while we're here. And things like you can soften your face and relax your jaw. And that works like a domino effect on the rest of the body and helps calm your nervous system. So I'd like to invite you to be playing with that while we're together. And just any time that we're practicing relaxing the body, and that's where some of these stretches, moves, use of movement can help us free up stuck energy, tension, tightness that's making it hard to relax. Things like that breath can be a huge tool, right, to help us shift how we're feeling and relax. And then even other things like we're going to talk about, what we're filling our heads with, what we're listening to, what we're reading, how we're focusing, how we're imagining, that's all affecting that nervous system, right? And so when we use these tools to help us get more towards calm, back towards relax, right? Helping the body maintain or get back to that homeostasis, that is where we're actually most healthy, most strong, most functioning, right? And that's really what we're going for here, is to keep rewiring that internal response to life even, and just helping us shift out of that fight or flight that a lot of us has got kind of chronically stuck in. And it just doesn't feel good, right? It just doesn't flow well. It's really hard on the body. It is super hard on our mental health, right? And it definitely, I would propose, goes with more feelings of like spiritual disconnection, right? Because the more that we're doing to feel connected spiritually, that's going to change how much we can relax, right? When we're more in that state of faith, that state of love, right? That feeling of connection, even the protection, it's really going to change how we're holding ourselves, right? So keep breathing, keep relaxing, move when you need to, sit comfortably. I'm also going to just light a little sage here, because that really helps us with, if we want, and this is, we could just decide we feel like something like sage is going to help clear the energy, whether we believe it or not. We can just decide, I'm doing this as a gesture to clear the energy in the space. And the more that we even do things like that, I do a lot of burning and stuff these days. And I love too that when I did a workshop earlier this year with a couple of my psychotherapist friends that was focused on anxiety, that one of my psychotherapist friends was talking about, we now know that things like burning sage is a way to manage our anxiety, right? Isn't that so cool? So I find myself, and yeah, me too, I've had a lot more anxiety this year. been burning a lot more sage as a spiritual practice, as an intentional practice, as a ritual, right? As an energy approach. And again, knowing that something I can do to shift things, lift things. And again, even just because I'm deciding it's true, that's for that like placebo effect, right? We now know how powerful that mind is. So whether or not you believe that sage actually clears energy, right? In my mind, it's more about the fact that you can just decide, I'm currently using the sage to clear the energy. And so it is, right? And so some would say you could use any form of sage or really anything if you want to burn it, right? As one possible practice to more consistently clear the energy for yourself. Take care of the energy around you, within you, even in a room, in a space. I'm really into it. So that could be, say, regular sage maybe is traditionally thought to clear the energy. And then maybe a more traditional practice would be to follow that up with something that's got kind of like a sweet smell, like an incense. This is Palo Santo. That's going to bring in maybe like that. And again, this is just you deciding. Let's now invite in more sweet energy, right? Love, fresh, new, right? So, little Palo Santo for us. And really, I want to remind you that you can look back on the YouTube here and find the previous retreat sessions. And each session is going to give you some more practices and more focus on how to use them. Things like we started with talking about the importance of kindness and compassion being at the base of all these practices, how we're approaching ourselves in life, and that one's probably the hardest one for me. And that's why I'm bringing it up first. And most importantly, that we want to bring in with all these practices. And even today, right now, as you may be in that awareness of routines you might have started to develop, habits you've been in, and maybe you're not feeling stoked to realize that. But this is an important moment already to say, okay, I'm not going to judge that. I'm not going to judge myself. I'm not going to decide that that's right or wrong or good or bad. I'm going to instead try being kind with myself about that, being compassionate, and even more in like a self-loving place, which again, this is like probably my most, the one I'm working on the most, we'll say. But we can see that all these practices are going to help us grow that, help us root into that approach, and that's part of the real psychology we're bringing in with all of that. So bring in that kindness and compassion with yourself and non-judgment already. And as we move through today, and keep breathing, keep relaxing, keep moving, and staying comfortable. So about what to do with our mornings, what to choose, right? And some of us have some things we've heard about over the years that are kind of classics, right? That it's a should, maybe even like, oh, I should do this in my mornings. But again, when we're honing in on what's going to really tune us mentally, physically, energetically, and spiritually, right? And how much that's all going to affect our emotions. Boy, I'm chilly here. It's really cold here in New York today. It's like 30 degrees. I'm going to put on my sweater. So, yeah, but what I want to share with you in this approach, I've used this now. I've gotten to do a couple talks with groups about things like morning routines. And there's a book out right now that's become really popular that I find is a really simple, easy way for me to transmit to you what we now know about these morning routines from a lot of these folks out there that use morning routines. And what is it that seems to go across many of these individuals? What are some of those aspects that show up again and again in what these individuals are sharing, what they're doing and using, how that's working for them? And what is it, right? What really works and helps to tune us, right? So this book, it's called The Morning Miracle, and it's by Matthew Kelly. And what I like about it is it does this exact thing for us. From research, from study, from a variety of sources, this author has brought together what he found is some of the common threads in a morning routine that can help you create this new lifestyle, right? And have a real, like, solid, practical, efficient, effective way to take care of yourself. So it's called the Morning Miracle. And what's so cool is he's broken it down to 6 different aspects, practices, habits, intentions that we can see can be so helpful. And what's so cool, this is the best part. This is where, like, if you feel busy, if you feel overwhelmed, it could just be 6 minutes a day that we're talking about. Because he proposes in this book that even if you just did 1 minute of each of these things that I'm going to talk to you about in a minute, that that could be your morning routine. That would be like a miracle that I would add will help tune your mind, your body, your energy, and help reconnect you in your feelings of spirituality, right? So even if you just had 6 minutes and you did each of these things in some form, again, remember, you're going to hear about these and then you're going to get ideas of ways that you could use them. And I'll share some ideas too. But if you only have 6 minutes, what if you just start with adding 6 minutes of things, including these aspects? How much that could change your days and your life, right? Shift your mental health, really enhance your physical health, help you take care of your energy, and help you be in a lot more of that feeling of faith, love, connection, if that's what you're interested in. So let's go. And please feel free to have a little something to drink beside you, because that helps. So the morning miracle, here are the aspects that he prescribes. And I don't know that he necessarily says there should be a certain order in which we do these. And then again, what's so cool about this is you're going to notice some of these are going to cross over where you could be like stacking the practices. So I'm going to mention that too, that it wouldn't even have to be 6 separate things that you do, because some of these things that we've been talking about through this whole series are going to offer you multiple benefits. So I'm going to keep weaving that in to help us see how this all comes together and works. And really, hopefully by the end of this session, you'll feel more clear on some of the things you might be starting to do in the starts of your days and why, and seeing how they're serving you because they're bringing in these important aspects for us. So the first one that this author, Matthew Kelly, was talking about is silence. That when we build in some form of silence, some experience of silence, that this can be a powerful, important, potent part of a morning routine that lots of individuals share works for them. And that's where we can see that we could come into silence even just with our cup of coffee, right? Sitting there, staring out the window, just not talking, not listening to anything else, right? Not feeding, not listening to the news, not having a conversation with anyone, but just allowing an experience of silence, right? Which, and we've talked about this in other sessions for this series, but that can be as simple as just like deciding in your mind that you're going to listen to the silence underneath the sounds right now, right? And even if we just do that and it only lasts for a few seconds, but just to have a minute of intentionally just playing with more silence. But this can be one of the powerful things we want to bring into our practices. And so this is an example already where we could see we could also do this on a walk, right? We could also do this in a bath, right? We could also do this just laying in bed, just laying there, listening to ourselves, being with our thoughts in even just 1 minute of silence, right? And what I've talked about in a previous session, because there was a session that was about things like sound and silence and how they help and why they work and why silence can be so powerful. Some of what I've learned is any experience of silence, right, is so calming to us mentally, physically. When we quiet the mind, gets a chance to slow its momentum, even change its momentum, So it really impacts mental health, what kind of thoughts we're having, what direction that's going. When we're in that silence, it gives us a chance to not only clear and quiet that mind, right? Which is really going to help us physically in the body. We really feel a difference when we get more quiet and tune into that silence, right? It's like medicine for us. And then also spiritually, lots of teachers remind us that it's in those moments of silence that we can really see that we're being more receptive, open, receiving that guidance, those answers to our prayers, right? I love the analogy that Florence Scovel, love her. She was like a classic teacher in the early 1900s talking about a lot of these ideas. But she talked a lot about intuition and prayer and how that works together. And she would say that prayer, for instance, is when you're maybe talking to God or the universe or your soul or your spirit or your ancestors, whoever you like to talk to. So when you're praying, it's like you're sending a message out, right? And then when you're more in that silence, which we can do with things, any form of meditation, which just about anything can be a form of meditation just by the way we're deciding to be in the moment. So even driving could be a form of meditation, right? But when we're in that and allowing that silence, even if it just lasts for a few seconds, that silence is that space where we can be more open and ready to receive that guidance, that intuition talking to us. So we could say that prayer is our talking to God and intuition is our receiving the answers, the guidance, the solutions, the next steps, right? The realizations. So a lot of that happens in that silence. So not only is that silence quieting and calming our mind, shifting and redirecting our mind, helping our body calm down, changing our energy, bringing us into the moment, of course, definitely an act of mindfulness, but it's also helping us start to reconnect spiritually and remember to be open and listening and receptive to that part of life and ourselves. So silence, totally cool, right? So again, thinking about, and some of these, so this could be the 6-minute idea that if you were going to do just the 6-minute idea, that 1 minute, can you devote 1 minute in your mornings to silence? Whether that's with your cup of coffee, in your bed, in your bath, in your shower, in your car, or maybe while you're on the yoga mat, right? That's where a lot of these practices give us multiple aspects, because when we're practicing any movement and calling it yoga, that's something that we're invited to be playing with, is getting into that silence. And so, yeah, any way that we can do it, but bringing in silence is number one as part of a morning routine that's really going to change your life. So second aspect that this author, Matthew Kelly, sorry, I have his name written down, discovered and shares is important, is affirmation. Anything that can help us become aware, right, of how we're focusing with our words, with our thoughts, whether we're saying things out loud or in our heads, is huge. And this is where we get to bring in that awareness that I love, that I'm still learning to actually embody and practice, but that our word is like our wand, right? It's such a big part of our power and a big part of our magic. So whether it's what we're saying to others, what we're saying to ourselves is huge, whether it's in our heads, whether it's out loud, whether it's on the page in a journal, for instance, it's important. And it really is shaping our focus, honing our focus. And it's a way that we can be aware of and take back the power of our words. So affirmations, meaning you could just say something like, I'm so thankful to be alive today, right? Or think that, or write that. And that is going to blend in also the aspect of gratitude, right? Which is one of the tools we talked about earlier, but an affirmation. Or it could just be, I'm going to have a great day today. Or it could be that's where things like what we're reading, which is reading is one of the aspects we're going to come up later, right? or when we're writing, like when we're journaling, certainly a time that we're in affirmation, right? And so it's just, yeah, owning the fact that our word is so powerful, and then deciding as part of our morning routine. So even if just for 1 minute, we had a way that we were bringing in some level of affirmation for ourselves, right? Whether it's through what we're saying out loud, what we're thinking, what we're writing down, and or I feel like even what we're reading, which again is one of these practices. So 1 minute for affirmations, right? And that again could even be in your bed where you're just like, I am calm, I am ready to take on the day, I am a child of God, right? Whatever it may be, that can be a form of affirmation. That's one of those tools we've found so many people now use as part of their morning routine that works. And again, why? Because it's really honing your mindset. Whatever we focus on grows, right? That attention is so powerful, and our words are our wand. So when we put that all together and use it like affirmations, right? And I'm thinking of even, I've seen memes, I think, that remind us that maybe everything is an affirmation. So even if I was saying, I'm really worried today, unfortunately, that's an affirmation too, right? Whether I'm thinking that, saying that out loud, writing it down. So we want to be aware of what are the affirmations that we're making, and then realize how important it is, and then absolutely build it into the morning routine. So even just 1 minute of something that brings in that aspect of affirmation, right? So that's piece 2. Number 3 that he talks about is some sort of visualization, which I like to see is really just this awareness that, boy, next to our words, our imagination is our other most powerful tool as humans, our most magical way that we get to create in the world. And that we can really start to see that whatever we're imagining, we really are creating, right? And so this has become an awareness. A lot of us know now about visualizing what we want, right? Things like that, which can be great. And that's part of what we're talking about here, intentionally being aware of what we are imagining, what we are visualizing, and making sure it is what we do want. Because that's something I see in myself too. Now that I'm so aware that my imagination is so powerful, unfortunately, I can still see I often use it against myself. I'm often still picturing what I most fear, or what I most regret, or the worst, right? And maybe we've learned that that's like more like a discerning, responsible way to approach life. But now I think we're seeing even more, it's a way to create what we don't want, because that imagination is so powerfully creating and even calling in what we're going to experience. And it's definitely affecting how we feel, right? When we're imagining the worst, when we're using that imagination against ourselves, it's absolutely affecting our physiology, right? Part of that nervous system being on stuck on fight or flight. A lot of that is what we're imagining, right? Me too. So part of these morning practices, again, because morning, that fresh start with the mind, fresh start energetically, really going to change all day long how you're using that mind, and reminding us to use that imagination for the better, right? So that's where within these 6 aspects, and it could just be 1 minute, being aware of what we're doing with our imagination, and so then using it more in an empowered way. So I would say this could be things like, sure, even just picturing our day and inviting ourselves to imagine how we do want it to go, what we're looking to get done, and seeing that and feeling that as if it's already true, right? Or it could also be visualization, just using imagery. And that could also be what you're actually looking at, right? Which is going to help fill your mind. Maybe time out in nature is going to help us bring in those images that now we can bring into mind to help us calm and quiet and center, using visualization to do that for ourselves. So like when we picture, imagine, visualize a smooth surface of a lake, right? Or an image of someone that we love, right? Or some of those just really simple ways that we can play with visualization, imagination, it really shifts us. And so part of a morning routine would be anything that's going to help us get into touch with that tool, that aspect of ourselves, and make sure we're using it for the better, right? So we have silence, affirmations, and visualization. The fourth one, which this one gives me the warm fuzzies because it's a practice that I've been using for over 20 years now, and it's definitely one of my most important practices, is any form of, he uses the word scribing, right? Which refers to writing and actually like taking a pen to paper, right? That this is a practice that a lot of these folks with morning routines who are hitting it hard in life and loving it, and me too, I've noticed that scribing, anything that's going to get me a chance to write, right, is an amazing practice, right? And it's really tuning us. So anything that can help us do a little bit of scribing, right? And that's where, for sure, if we already have a journaling practice, if we'd like to, and it could even just be making a list of some of the things we're thankful for today. Or it could be, this is where we're kind of combining, that we could be writing affirmations, right? We could be writing, I am love, I am safe, I am free, I am thankful, right? Those are affirmations. So that's where we can see that we can kind of stack or multitask these aspects. So some practices are going to give us silence and affirmations and scribing, right? All in one. And so we're meeting all those aspects. Or you can take it like this 6-minute idea, and you've done a minute of silence, you've done a minute of affirmations, you've done a minute of visualization, whatever it is. And all these could obviously be super simple. And then you're doing maybe a minute of scribing. So who knew? I knew because I've noticed so much how when I scribe, when I write, when I take that pen to the paper, there's so many parts of it that help it be so powerful for us. It's absolutely a very grounding practice, just the hand on the page, bringing us into our bodies, bringing us into the moment. It's 100% a form of meditation. When we are scribing, it's honing our focus and our attention, which is what meditation is all about, giving us a chance to be even more of a listening mode, right? And then certainly a way that we're starting to be more aware of our words, how we're using them, gives us that insight into ourselves that is helpful. And yeah, so scribing, grounding, centering, it's an energy practice. It also can really release stuck energy. It can even free up trauma when we write about experiences, for instance, right? Artists have been in that mode over the years, that when we write about our trauma, even the things that we're upset about, that what it's doing is it's giving us a chance to free it up, let it go, pour it out on the page, like the energy that it is, get it out of us, out of our heart, out of our body, so that isn't just festering and part of our suffering, right? So when we scribe, we're releasing, we're reconnecting, right? And we're really honing that focus and mindset, which is going to be so important in how we feel. So scribing as one of those morning miracle invitations that so many swear by, right? So, and I love that one. And I did do one of these sessions is all about journaling and gratitude. So please look back and you'll find that if you want more ideas on how to use things like journaling and gratitude and why those things work and how you can use them. So I hope that's helpful for you. 2 more. And wow, boy, our time has gone quickly. I have no problem talking. So these last 2, reading is number 5, any form of reading. And then again, so it could just be 1 minute, 1 page, 1 sentence, right? Christians over the years have known this in the practice of studying scripture each day, right? That can be 1 sentence that is going to change your day, right? And that's where this too, if we were someone who liked something like scripture, or maybe it's a quote from someone else, maybe it's a book that we're in, maybe, lots of ways that we could get that reading in. And that's where, though, maybe you are reading right now, but you're reading the news, you're reading all about COVID, right? Which isn't bad, right? But do you want that to be part of your morning routine? Because it is tuning you for the whole day. And when you're doing your reading, but you're reading about things that are stressing you out, it may not be having the effect that you want. So I would vote morning, read something that's going to reconnect you, right? Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whether it's one sentence, a page of a book, right? Or some articles, or even it could be on social media, right? If you get on your social media and it gets you to reading things that make you happier, tune you, get you into the influence that you want to be under, right? And help you feel more connected, then keep doing that, right? But if you're waking up scrolling and your reading is making you feel disconnected, stressed, right? Then yeah, maybe choose a different way to practice that reading tool, practice, ritual. And it's so powerful. So even just 1 minute of reading is one of the things that across the board that these individuals who use morning routines, who are thriving, profess is important to them, to add a little something, a little form of reading along with that little moment of writing. And then again, of course, with all these things, you could make it longer. You could say, okay, I'm going to do 5 minutes of reading, 5 minutes of writing, 5 minutes of visualization, 5 minutes of silence, right? So you could make it bigger chunks. And or like for me, I've got some morning practices that probably take me about an hour when I really look at it. But I've got things like a yoga mat practice and forms of meditation in my journaling and what I'm listening to and reading. And so I have ways that I'm blending these various aspects. They may not all be separate, but at least I can know I'm getting some silence. I'm making use of affirmation. I'm paying attention to what I'm visualizing. I'm scribing for the energy and power of that. And I'm reading, right? How cool is that? And paying attention to what I'm reading, making sure that it's something that's tuning me to how I want to feel, how I want to focus, how I want to be in the world, right? And my relationships. So reading, I love that. I love to read. And it's kind of fun that some of these things almost are bringing back almost like ancient practices, right? That humans have used for years to tune and take care of ourselves. So the last one, which is funny, this is the last one because you might think this would be the most important one to me, is yes, some form of exercise. And we all have heard that one, right? That we should be exercising every day. And that, yeah, we might have a sense that it would be most disciplined to do it in the morning, right? But it doesn't have to be. That's where I love this book brings up. What if you just did 1 minute of something to help you get yourself into your body, help you maybe move your body? That's where it could be 1 minute of a stretch and something that's going to do that energy work for you. To me, that is the most important thing I see that we get from exercise nowadays. So, and a lot of us, and maybe this year, we have been exercising less, right? And noticing we're feeling even more anxious and depressed, perhaps. And it goes hand in hand because that physiology totally plays into how we're feeling mentally, emotionally. And then that mental, emotional, right, affects our physiology. So, the exercise aspect, and that's where he says 1 minute. He says, what if you did 1 minute of jumping jacks, right? Or what if you danced for a minute? Or what if you walked for a minute, right? There's so many ways that we could bring in movement or exercise. But that, yeah, that across the board is something that people swear by as something that helps them flow through their days, feel better, and focus, right, in ways that work. And I would vote, I feel the exact same way. For me, it's my 15, 20-minute personalized mat practice, which is what I also set up for others. So if you ever want something like that, like a real specific, simple, perfect practice for you, that's what I do with others. But for me, that's what does it for me. And if I don't do my mat practice, I'm a lot different all day long. I'm so tied up in my energy. I'm even more in my head. I feel so much different, so much less focused, and so much more anxious, absolutely, and out of sorts and disconnected, right? And even remembering that body is such a source of our guidance and intuition. And nowadays, a lot of us are kind of living, residing in a sense in our heads, right? Being very heady, very just intellectual, just in our thoughts and really disconnected from our bodies, right? It's kind of a cultural phenomenon, which turns out just doesn't feel good, doesn't flow well. It's not how we're built to be. So doing something to get us back in the body, doing something to take care of the body, move that energy, right? Because it's all energy. And when you move, you're moving your energy, you're shifting your energy, you're letting go of stuck energy, you're helping energy keep flowing, right? So it's hugely important. And definitely as humans, we're built to move. Our ancestors were walking 5 or 6 hours a day. And we, even if we're big exercisers, it might just be 1 or 2 hours a day. So our bodies are getting a lot less movement than they're meant to. It's a big reason a lot of us are not feeling good in the body and even in the mind, right? And even in our emotional states. And again, just recognizing that it's all energy. So that's, in my opinion, the best reason to weave in a little exercise. And that's where, again, what if it's just 1 minute? 1 minute can make a huge difference, right? Especially when you find something that really works for you. Maybe it's one pose that just is perfect for you. Maybe it's 1 minute walking in your backyard. Maybe it's 1 minute jump roping. Maybe it's, again, 1 minute dancing, which I love dancing because it's energy medicine. It's so reconnecting, right? And then it even brings in like music, which has its own tuning aspects. Absolutely. So exercise is the last one. So yeah, if you even just wanted to take these 6 aspects, do 1 minute of each of them, that could become your new morning routine. And I would propose that doesn't have to be that hard or difficult, right? And it can, again, do it in ways that work for you. If like the silence aspect just means you sitting with your cup of coffee and just choosing to be a little more silent just for a minute, knowing that's going to really change how you feel and how you flow all day. Having the, awareness with what we're doing with affirmation, tuning into ways we can be using that imagination, checking out what we are doing with it, re-choosing what we're doing with it, right? Getting into the power of scribing, that writing, a practice that's super helpful to us humans. A lot of us not doing it at all these days, right? We're just on our devices and we're really missing out on a really cool, magical tool. And also when we write, we now know it like really rewires the brain even more strongly, energetically. If we're interested in manifestation too, the more we write things down, right? The more we know that they're going to happen. So lots of bonuses to that scribing. And then reading as one of those practices. What are you reading in the mornings? Could you read something for a minute, even one sentence, one page, one paragraph, one post from someone you're inspired by, right? However you're going to do it, but to recognize that that's a really powerful way to tune yourself and an important part of self-care and even spirituality, right? Because again, if you're into spirituality, a lot of what we can be growing our practices with, and this was last week's talk was talking about that, a spiritual study and how that's a huge way to build our feelings of connection is to be reading, listening to, getting input from people that we want to listen to about things like our spirituality and how to develop that connection, right? So reading maybe something from a book or a teacher that you like that's going to help you with that focus, how you feel, right? And get you in that feeling of connection that you're going for. So reading as an exciting one. And then that exercise. Yep. Anything we can do to get in the body, to move the body is going to be hugely helpful. So, wow, that hour went quick. I knew I would have no trouble talking to you for an hour, though, about this because this is one of my most passionate subjects. Because for me, this is what has changed my life the most. And that's why I do what I do with the personalized approach. Instead of just saying, come to a class once a week with me and that'll be enough, I've realized, you know what, for me, and everybody I've worked with, when we make it more of an everyday thing with our self-care and spirituality, when we make it more of a morning thing, that's when it works the best. And for me, it was, when early in my early 30s, when I was first having babies, that I really got disciplined with my practices. I look back and it's because it was the time that I most needed to get disciplined and I most needed to take advantage of my mornings because it was definitely affecting what kind of mom I was going to be, how I was going to greet my kids, how I was going to respond to my kids, right? And so I noticed right away, and I remember my kids even noticed a difference in me when I started to get more disciplined about my mornings and making sure that I have more of these variety, these aspects that we now know are so important, things that help us quiet, center, focus, tune ourselves right. And I love this morning miracle. So, and then if you want to check out that whole book, The Morning Miracle, it's out there. And I even believe I saw that it's about to come out as a movie with all sorts of people talking about their morning routines and just the miracle of getting into a morning routine that really works for you. So I love that I've come upon this book because it makes it really easy for me to translate what I've discovered, but in this very concise way, right? Especially in the idea that what if it's just 6 minutes that you start to add starting today or tomorrow, right? 6 minutes, including these aspects that can totally change your life, right? How rad is that? I think it's so awesome. It really gets me so excited at what's possible, what's changeable, right? And especially as we're entering the new year, I would vote that we take a look at this. And not even that we need to wait till January 1st, though. I love that one of my favorite teachers, Gary Vee, I saw him post the other day on like December 20 something. If you know you want to do this for a New Year's resolution, why are you waiting till January 1st, right? Every day can be like New Year's Day, right? We don't have to wait till tomorrow or till the new year to make changes. But but if that excites you, if you love the idea of New Year's resolutions, and it's not very far away right now, it being December 26th today, that sure, you could say, okay, starting January 1st, I'm going to start to have more of a conscious morning routine. And I'm going to bring in these aspects that I now know are so helpful in a personalized way, right? Like for the exercise, if I know rocking out to Lady Gaga is my thing, hell yeah, right? So, yeah, I'm hoping this is helpful because this is, to me, the most powerful and potent way that we can change our lives, really. Like I'm even realizing that as I say that to you now, that what we do in our mornings, it's really the fastest, easiest, most efficient and effective way to make changes mentally, physically, emotionally, energetically, spiritually. 100%. And it doesn't have to be hours a day. And then the bonus is it's about developing habits that now you could use for a lifetime and even really shift how you're going to feel, how you're going to age, how you're going to be in the world and relationships and life, right? How your mental health is going to go over these coming years. And so you're not going to have to feel like you're so at the whim of a life, right? And again, the more that we get rooted in these practices, it makes it easier to deal with the uncertainties of life even, right? Which we now know from this year more than ever is always going to be true, right? So this is about taking control of what we can take control of and really playing with the power of that. And then again, on the most exciting note, I've noticed that when we tune ourselves in the mornings to feeling good, knowing that means we're on a higher vibration, that that vibration translates into a lot better day, a lot different rendezvous, a lot more synchronicity, a lot more serendipity, a lot more inspiration, right? And again, a lot of that is because we're just feeling more connected in that receptivity, in that presence that's part of even being aware of the synchronicities and the serendipities and all the magic of life. But when we tune ourselves, especially in the morning, it is like magic and can really create some magical days. So I love that. And I'm so happy to share. So please reach out if there's anything I can do to help you with your practices from here. And I really, truly hope this has been helpful to you, especially as you get into this new year and looking at how you want to be taking care of yourself, right? So I'm so thankful to be here with you. I love you so much. Have a good one out there, y'all. Namaste.